worst part of this is Chad seems to get regressed very easy. He seems to be able to do that very easy. This woman is got him into the experience, and I'll have him share with you this regression, because I personally find it just fascinating, and it's totally different than my experience. But this woman, she seems to become very afraid when she realizes that Chad is telling his truth. And his truth, he's dealing with several different types of beings. That's my word. Others might use the word aliens, ETs. I never have. I just refer to beings. But you can hear this woman, this therapist, she starts to become very afraid. Every time Chad is talking about one of these different types of beings, rather than keep him in that experience where he can share all, she becomes very afraid and she moves him away from it. Now, I'm just going crazy because I'm realizing, oh my heavens, this woman's in over her head. And yikes, what have I done setting this up? Well, thank heavens, I don't think any damage for the most part, but the reality is there's a whole lot more still in Chad, that if there's any truth to this regression, and I highlight those words, if there's any truth to any of that, there's a whole lot more in him. And I paid somebody a lot of money to regress me, and I wasn't able to do it. So I've got all that other missing time that's still missing, if you will.
Well, was he able to fill in the blanks of what happened at all when he was regressed?
Right. So Chad, if you
yeah, a little of it, or parts of it. The last thing.
Part.
Yeah. The last thing I remember is, again, the three of us, that night, and our friend coming over and joining us, mid-block right there at the stoop. And I look around the other corner at kind of down back towards Frenchman and down Frenchman, or up Frenchman, and I see this bright light coming from around the corner. And I get the girl's attention, and we kind of walk around the corner because we could tell it was brighter than, like a headlights or anything like that. So we get around the corner, and there's this orb. And I would say it was probably about 12 foot in diameter. It was just this bright, white, clean ball of light energy. It was probably about 15 foot off the ground. It was probably about a half a block down the street. And it sits there, and we're looking at it. And, for just a few seconds. And all of a sudden, it just comes at us and just engulfs us. It takes us in. It abducts us. And this is kind of where we get the name, the name for our book, abducted at the French Quarter. But anyway, this light just kind of engulfs us. Now, my next memory is I'm walking down this corridor. It's kind of gently turning to the right. It's the walls, the ceiling, and everything very metallic, very smooth. No rivets, no bolts, nothing like that. There's this little being I'm following, and he's probably about 4 foot tall, big bulbous head, kind of a pale gray skin tone. Now, he doesn't look like the little gray ET things that you see on TV. He had kind of substance to him. He kind of waddled when he walked. He was kind of almost dwarfish. Now, to my left, out of the corner of my eye, I could see a tall blonde female walking beside me. I didn't turn to look to see if this was our friend, but this kind of describes our friend. So, but I don't know if it's her or not. My next memory is I'm in this room, and it just seems to go on forever. It just seems huge. Over to my left, it's very, very dark, but over to my left, I could see a tall blonde female laying on an examining table, three beings around her, and these beings, I would say, were around 7, 8 foot tall. It was just kind of a few lights around this examining table. There's one on each side of her and then one at her head. These beings, again, 7, 8 foot tall, very buggy looking, big eyes, mouth closer to their, chin area. Their arms very crooked. They were wearing these cloaks, kind of almost like a Grim Reaper, but without the hood. I kind of turn back over to my immediate. I look over to my right, and I see this little blue being. Now, he looks a lot like the grays that you see on TV, but he was this bright electric blue. Again, big almond eyes, he was probably 3, 4 foot tall, very, very thin, very frail looking. But his aura, his presence was that of a professor / shaman / scientist / old knowledge, just in. Now, I was never nervous. I was never anxious. I was never scared throughout my experience. I was very calm. And again, he seemed to be very a good person or a good being, or, he didn't seem to be menacing or anything like that. His aura was, beautiful. And he goes over and he picks up this box, and he has it in his right hand. And he takes his left hand and puts it into the side of the box. And when he pulls his hand out, there's this substance kind of free-floating above his hand, probably the size of a quarter, or something like that, maybe a half a dollar. But this substance kind of looked like, it was kind of blobbish, and it was kind of undulating. It looked kind of like that slime stuff that the kids play with that kind of just run through your fingers, but it was, it was sustained, it was kind of all together, and it was the same color blue that he was, but a little translucent. You could see little glitter or metal or sparkly things inside it. And he takes, now I don't even remember him setting the box down, but all of a sudden he takes his right hand and he has his left hand, kind of out in front of him, flat, and this substance free-floating above it. And he takes his hand. Now, he only has 4 digits. So he takes his hand and kind of puts his 2 middle fingers up, almost kind of like in a peace sign, or like what you see the Buddhist priests or, Christ, when they depict Christ, or the saints, they have like this kind of peace sign going up, and his outer fingers folded in. And when he did this substance starts spinning, and it's just going faster and faster. And the faster it spun, the blueness and the sparkly, the glittery kind of flakes kind of dissipate out of it and kind of rotate around it, like the us in the sun, it's like kind of just rotating around it. And it kind of starts slowing down, and it turned into this like double-pointed crystal, very clean, very clear. And I remember thinking to him, why are you showing this to me? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer. This is something very important. Why are you showing this to me? And he told me that I would know in time, or when it's time.
Now, how many years, Chad, how many years ago was that?
This was in 97.
Okay, so it's been quite a few years. Have you came to a conclusion what he was trying to show you?
Well, no, not really. At first, I thought it was like some kind of like clean energy, kind of type thing. But now I'm thinking more of like a healing type of energy, or holistic type of energy instead of, like something to turn on the light bulb. Maybe it's something to turn on our light bulb or, our being.
Interesting. So we only got about 20 minutes left. I mean, how much more stranger does it get with you guys' lives?
Well, he still has the last part of that little experience, if you care to hear it, because the reason I'm saying that is that my take on Chad's regression, and every time I hear it, and I love to hear it because it's very consistent, it would appear that Chad had an encounter or a connection with at least, last I counted, 4 different types of beings, different types, all in this one experience. There's another, the very last experience, he's having another encounter with a different type. And in my memory of that night, I'm with a being, but she's not any of what Chad has described. She's completely different. Our friend that was, I used the word taken with us that night, Christine, if I might add, because we speak on her behalf, she had, it's all just so crazy, but she had what is commonly now becoming known as an encounter with a shapeshifter. I call him Dark Boy. This guy, just a couple inches in front of her face, in daylight, shapeshifted into a wolf. He did it twice, right in front of her face, and she called him on it after being in shock, and made reference to the fact, and keeping the language clean, she called him on it and said, "You just turned into a wolf," and, in a very stern voice, and he responded to her in a very startled voice. "You saw that." Confirming she saw what she saw, just like Chad and I know we've seen what we've seen. Well, this happened just a relatively very short amount of time before the night we were taken. She's having a Wolfie Boy experience. And then her story is, last she knows, she's on that corner with us at 11 o'clock. And the next thing she knows, it's somewhere between 3, 4 in the morning. And she's now being put back. She's been put back behind the steering wheel of her moving car. It's moving very slow. It hit a parked car, and it knocked off her rear view mirror. And this is what she says jolted her too. She's in another section or another part of the city from where she parked the car that morning. And that car seems to be driving itself to Wolfie Boy's house, the last person in the whole wide world she ever would want to see. That story is creepier than a movie. And then that's just one faction of 3 of us having this night together, but all very different. Very different.
Well, to me, it sounds like you guys were abducted. It sounds like a standard case of, being abducted. I mean, I had a lady and a husband was on my show where they were abducted out of their car and returned, and it was in freezing weather, returned outside of their car.
Right.
With the car locked.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
So,
I'm standing on a street corner at 11 o'clock at night, and then it's the next day, and the sun is blaring through my living room window, and I'm sitting straight up in my house.
well, what better time to abduct somebody off the street when there's hardly anybody walking around?
Well, right, and there you have it. This is the French Quarter. It's a 24/7. If you've not been, it's a 24/7 party.
Yeah,
Those clubs
nonstop.
don't close. They don't stop, and they don't shut down. And, even in slow periods of the time of year, convention, and it's tourism. There's no people that night. Now, when Chad said, we mean that. There were our words were a few stragglers, but I started taking note of it instantly when we hit Bourbon Street, and that's one of the chapters in our book. Where is everybody? Where are all the people? That, again, the high-strangeness